morning, everyone. First of all, thank you very much, Chris, for that very kind introduction. And quite frankly, I think your remarks, I hope, will lead very well into what I've got to share with people today. This is my first opportunity to come to CANSEC. It's a very, very well done and impressive gathering of industry, public servants, partners, and friends. And frankly, as Canada's new Minister of National Defence, I draw great strength and encouragement by the crowd I see before me today and the conversations that we have shared. Let me begin also by thanking Kristen Fernandi and the entire CADC team for putting on this extraordinary conference, but also by providing me with good advice and I think great support. I also want to take the opportunity, if I may, to acknowledge and thank Deputy Minister Bill Matthews for his many years of service to the department. Bill's being moved to another and very important position, and a position that's going to be very important to all of us as the new Secretariat for the Treasury Board. But his work in our Department of National Defence has been extraordinary and exceptional. He's been an enormous partner to me, but also to so many of you, and the progress that we have made together, and I think the future that we will share together, has been well shaped by the exceptional work of Bill Matthews. And we'll have other opportunities to thank him, but I'd have been remiss if I did not mention it today. A truly outstanding public servant. One of the things I've learned in my many years of service, but particularly as Canada's Minister of National Defence, is that Canada's defence industry is truly world-class. You are renowned for your innovation and leadership, and you have, over many years, ensured that the Canadian Armed Forces are well equipped and well prepared. Your work has kept Canada safe, and it creates tens of thousands of skilled, well-paying jobs right across the country. When I was appointed to this job, one of the very first things that I undertook to do was to meet with our defence industry. I met with your associations. I went to visit a number of factories. I wanted to hear, quite frankly, what you needed from us and how we could better support you. You told me very clearly that you needed clarity and certainty about where we were going and how we were going to get there. You told me that you wanted to build a stronger relationship which was based on transparency and trust. And you told me that you were ready to step up and to increase production, but that you needed the stability and predictability of long-term contracts and reliable funding. And we listened to you. And earlier this spring, in April, we released our new defence policy update entitled Our North, Strong and Free, Canada's renewed vision for defence. And I sincerely hope that all of you saw your advocacy in that document. Because as Chris mentioned, I have often said, we needed a new defence policy, but quite frankly, we also needed an industrial policy. We needed a national policy that could explain to Canadians where we were going and why. And through this policy, we have now locked in $9.5 billion over 20 years to scale up the production of battle-decisive munitions. As an example, this is a direct result of what we heard from industry. With this investment, we're going to strengthen our production capacity right here in Canada so that our military will have the stockpiles it needs and so that you have the certainty that you need to scale up. I really believe that production is deterrence, and our investment in industry and our partnership together is what will keep the country and the world safe. I also want to take a moment, if I may, to thank our Assistant Deputy Minister for Materiel, Troy Crosby, for his remarkable and continued hard work on his procurement. When it comes to improving our procurement processes, I've listened to all of you, but I've also had the benefit of Troy's expertise. And so Troy, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your remarkable commitment while you have been helping us bring faster capabilities to our armed forces. You've also been an important partner to industry. Will be piloting a continuous capability sustainment approach to upgrading our equipment. Rather than simply upgrading our equipment in fits and starts, as perhaps has been a bit of a pattern in the past, we intend to rapidly integrate the latest technology and innovations in far more frequent and predictable cycles that will create new opportunities for all of you. And on top of this, we're going to be investing more than $100 million in the NATO Innovation Fund, which is going to help Canadian innovators develop dual-use technologies that are critical to defense. And in this policy, we will invest $8.1 billion over the next 5 years and $73 billion over the next 20. This is a very significant new investment for the Government of Canada and for the people of Canada in defense capability. It will result in a 27% increase of our defense budget next year over this, which is really quite extraordinary. But let me acknowledge to you all as well, we need to do more, and we will do more. By the end of this decade, we'll have almost tripled our defense investments compared to 2015. But there are additional things not even yet included in our defense policy update, which we know Canada is going to need. And so I look forward to the opportunity to work with everyone in this room to make sure that we chart an appropriate path forward. And as I've often said, the defense minister in Canada has two very difficult jobs. One is getting money, and the other is spending money well. And I think it is incumbent upon us, when we're spending hard-earned Canadian tax dollars, that we demonstrate to Canadians that we are producing the best return on their investment in our national defense. And we do that through partnership. We do that through working together, and we do that through demonstrating our commitment to making sure that we get the very best of equipment as quickly as is required at the speed of life in order to keep up with what we are being challenged on. Now, this is a very significant defense investment for us. It brings us much closer to that target of 2% on GDP. But we need to get this right. Every single taxpayer dollar, as I've said, needs to be spent to produce real value. And to do that, we have work to do. We've got to acquire the capabilities that we need, and we've got to make sure that the people who fly our planes and steer our ships have the very best platforms to work upon. We need to demonstrate that we can spend Canadian taxpayer money well and wisely, and we need to also acknowledge that defense investment isn't just about hitting a numerical target. It's about delivering real capability for the Canadian Armed Forces. When we drafted this policy, we looked very carefully at all of our needs and our future needs, and we came back with a very clear strategic focus. This policy makes it very clear that job number one is defending Canada and North America. It makes clear that our most immediate task is to protect every inch of our sovereign territory in the face of growing security challenges, especially in our Arctic and northern regions. And to be clear, if we are going to be a good partner in NATO and in NORAD and in the Indo-Pacific and around the world, we must be strong at home so that we can be strong around the world. And that strategic focus has informed the capabilities that we've chosen to move forward with. And these will include specialized maritime sensors, a more modern and mobile helicopter capability, early warning aircraft, a new strategic ground station in the Arctic, ground-based long-range missile capabilities, and a series of northern operational support hubs to ensure a more robust year-round presence in Canada's north. These investments are going to create good jobs, and they will create opportunities for Canadians and in particular for Indigenous and northern communities. They're going to create significant opportunities to build multi-purpose infrastructure in the north that will serve both a civilian and military purpose. And it will strengthen our security here at home, but in order to do that, we have a great deal of work to do, and we must do that work together. We're going to move quickly to implement the projects that have been funded in our North Strong and Free, and we are going to turn those options, which I refer to as explore options, into a reality. And while we pursue these projects, we're also implementing the projects that we outlined in our 2017 defense policy, strong, secure, and engaged. The Canadian Army is taking delivery of new armored combat support vehicles that are built right here in Canada. 4 Arctic and offshore patrol ships are now in the water, and this year, we will begin to cut steel on the new fleet of the Canadian surface combatants. And in the past 18 months, we have signed deals for approximately 140 new aircraft, including F-35 fighters, Poseidon sub-hunters, and tankers from Airbus. But we're going to, and we must keep going. And with that in mind, today I'm very pleased to announce that some additional progress in delivering new platforms for the Canadian Armed Forces has been made. And today, I have the privilege of announcing that we have now signed an $11.2 billion contract with Sky Align which will deliver future aircraft training program in collaboration with the Royal Canadian Air Force. SkyAlign will help to train RCAF pilots, air combat system officers, and airborne electronic sensor operators. And with this contract, our air crews will train on 5 different fleets, more than 70 aircraft in total, preparing our crews to operate both fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters for the RCAF of the future. SkyAlign will also provide classroom instruction, simulator flight training, as well as on-site support at RCAF wings. And with this program, we're ensuring that current and future RCAF air crews will have the most advanced equipment and training available. And this contract will of course include an Indigenous participation plan, which commits to investing a minimum of 5% of the total contract value, excluding the cost of aircraft and simulators, to Indigenous businesses. This particular contract will create and maintain over 3,400 jobs in Canada over the next 25 years. It's going to deliver for the RCAF precisely what they need. It ensures a strong future for the RCAF. This is just one element of the largest investment that the Royal Canadian Air Force has seen since the Second World War. This year we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the RCAF. And as we celebrate this centennial, I am more optimistic than ever about its future. We also, of course, have to make pretty significant investments in the Canadian Army. And today, I'm also announcing that we are investing $2.58 billion with General Dynamics Land Systems Canada and Marshall Canada in a joint venture for a new fleet of light and heavy logistics vehicles, equipment, and in-service support for the Canadian Army. In total, this investment is going to deliver over 1,000 light trucks and approximately 500 heavy trucks to our military, as well as associated equipment such as armored protection kits, containers, trailers, and interchangeable modules that can be turned into ambulances, command posts, and much more. These new vehicles are going to be the workhorses of the Canadian Army. They're going to transport everything from personnel to equipment to supplies in combat zones and across Canada after natural disasters. Our new fleet will carry heavier loads, it'll be more mobile, it's going to offer much better protection for our people in uniform. The first vehicles are currently expected to arrive by 2027, and I understand some of them are on display at the General Dynamics booth just outside this hall, and I invite you to go by and have a look at them. This contract is also going to include an Indigenous participation plan to Indigenous businesses, as well as creating employment, training, skills development for Canadians. I'm very proud that these contracts have been awarded to leading Canadian industry partners who have demonstrated their commitment to supporting the Canadian Armed Forces and creating real economic benefits for all Canadians. To everyone involved in these projects, to our partners today as we announce this project, but in the many years of work together that we have in front of us, I want to say thanks. Thank you for your commitment, thank you for your partnership, and we will be with you as we deliver for the Canadian Armed Forces. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the future of our partnership together. Our partnership with industry is only becoming more crucial, as the video we shared today demonstrated. Because as I've said, production is deterrence, and there is an increasing number of threats that we must contend with. Over the past 2 years, we have seen Putin massively increase the output of his war machine, and we of the West have not always done enough to keep up. We must do more. We will do more. Our European allies are making historic investments to increase production. The United States is also scaling up to production, and we must do the same. Whether it's planes or ships or ammunition, we need to build more and we need to build faster. As I said, since day one, our new True North Strong and Free policy update is more than merely a defense plan. It has to be an industry plan. It's a jobs plan. It's a production plan. And together, we need to do what is necessary to implement these projects. You told us very clearly that you needed a more strategic relationship with government. You told us that you needed defense procurement to be faster and more flexible. We heard you. We heard you loud and clear. So let's ensure that this defense policy update is not the end of an important conversation, but rather the beginning of a new one. Over the next few days and in the months ahead, I want very much to hear from all of you about how you can help us deliver on the projects of this policy and how we can help you. Let's take real steps to do things differently, to secure our defense policy supply chains, and to increase production to levels that have not been seen in this country for decades. Together, Let's prioritize Canadian innovation so that we maintain an edge over our competitors, so that we can sell your solution to our allies around the world. And together, let's provide the Canadian Armed Forces with the tools that they need to protect our sovereignty in a rapidly changing and challenging world. I want to thank you all for being here today and for the warm reception that I have received. I want to thank you for the extraordinary work. Now, when we talk about doing things better, that should not be perceived as criticism of what has gone on in the past. We have worked well together for very many years. We together have achieved some very extraordinary things, but the world is changing rapidly. The challenges we face with the aggressive and hostile actions of certain of our adversaries, with changing climate change resulting in far more accessibility to our shores, and the advent of new technologies which are challenging us all to keep up. We recognize the importance of doing more, and doing more effectively means doing it together. And so I want to thank you very much for all of the work that you have done in service to our country and to Canadian industry and workers. But we have a big job ahead of us, and I'm very much looking forward to working with all of you. The Canadian government is committed to being there. We've heard what you needed from us. We're doing our best to deliver, but I want to acknowledge to you all, we still have more to do, and we're going to continue to doing that work with each and every one in this room. Thank you all very much.
Well, to be very clear, this is entirely defensive technology. The Canadian Armed Forces is conducting a program right now in Western Canada where there are a number of different countries and industries that are participating and demonstrating technology that allows the Canadian Armed Forces to defend their people and defend their country against drone attack. And so the measures that are, and technology that's being tested is a purely defensive technology. And I think it's important that the Canadian Armed Forces have an opportunity to see what's available and to see what they need in order to do their job.
5% of female students at the Royal Military College that were surveyed last year said that they were sexually attacked in the previous 12 months. 9% said they were sexually assaulted during that time period because they were drugged, intoxicated, or manipulated in some way. This is a long-standing problem. Is the government failing to protect young female?
First of all, let me be very clear that the behavior identified by those students is completely unacceptable. It's one of the reasons, under Madam Justice Arbour's recommendations, and she's made some very important recommendations, is that we actually conduct that survey. Because I think we can't make assumptions about what the experience of our students is without asking them, and so that survey is very important. The information that they've shared with us really does require a rapid response. It's one of the reasons we've also appointed an expert panel to look at the culture and the activities within our Royal Military Colleges, and their recommendations will be coming back to us in the not too very distant future that allow us to respond. And some of the other things that we are doing in response to Madam Justice Arbour's other recommendations, the legislation that we brought forward, a number of measures that we put in place, and other things that we are very actively engaged in completing, are addressing that very real concern that has been identified by those students. As I say, no one in the Canadian Armed Forces, in any of our institutions, and in particular in our colleges and universities, no one should be subjected to that behavior. It is unacceptable, and it has to be dealt with, and will be dealt with.
Minister, I wanted to ask about the 2% goal. Today, Ambassador Hellman was quoted in Politico saying that every congressperson she talks to brings it up. Did you advocate to Cabinet to get spending to 2% of GDP?
Yeah, to be very clear, what I've advocated to Cabinet is to deliver for the Canadian Armed Forces the capabilities that they have said that they require. That's the goal, because and it does require a significant amount of spending. What we have approval for, which is in our policy document, is spending for the next 4 years, and it's in our current budget, that will bring our spending to 1.76. But we also identified in that document other capabilities that the armed forces, our Navy, our Air Force, and our Army said that they require in order to do the job of defending Canada and fulfilling our obligations to our allies in NORAD, in NATO, and in the Indo-Pacific. And so we are doing the work now to examine what is available, first of all, to determine precisely the requirements of our armed forces. And just as an example, the Navy's doing the work right now to determine what we need for underwater surveillance, a submarine fleet. When they have completed that work, and it's underway now and won't take long, I intend to go into the marketplace and see what is available to meet those requirements. And when we've done that important work, we'll be going back to Cabinet with the results of that work. I am very confident that first of all, we must deliver those capabilities for the armed forces, but we have to do it right. And doing it right means doing our homework, doing the research that is necessary to make sure that when we make those investments, we produce real value for Canadians. I am also confident that when we acquire those capabilities, it'll well exceed 2% of our GDP, but we've got work to do to get there.
I take your point on that, but every one of your allies wants at least a deadline to get to the 2%. NATO has asked for that. Jens Stoltenberg has asked for that. The U.S. ambassador to NATO has asked for that. Canada is the only NATO country without that.
Can I be very clear, though? First of all, we are committed to 2%. The Prime Minister last year in Vilnius, at the NATO summit in Vilnius, committed Canada
but no deadline. You say you're committed, but there's no deadline that you set.
But I think we outlined a very clear path. First of all, our defense spending is going up 27% next year over this year. That's a very significant increase, almost unprecedented among our allies, in our defense spending. But that increase also requires that we spend that money well, that we produce real value for the investment Canadians are making in defense. I want to assure Canadians we have more to do. I've said it in virtually every speech I've given since I became the defense minister. We need to do more, and we're going to do more. But we're going to do it right. We're going to do our homework. We're going to get the research. We're going to make sure that the government, on behalf of Canadians, makes a well-informed decision about how to invest their hard-earned tax dollars in creating real capability for our defense. In Canada, we do not publish our aspirations. Our budget and our policy document, as currently been released with our North Strong and Free, very clearly articulates and is fully funded with things that we know what we must do and are going to do. We've also indicated there is more that we also need to do, and we'll go back to Canadians when we have that information. I'm very confident I will be able to assure our NATO allies, our American partners, Canada is moving very strong in an upward trajectory of defense spending. We're going to do what is required, but we're also going to do it right.
Minister, what do you answer to those protesters outside asking your government to stop every trade with Israel? Every military trade with Israel?
First of all, in Canada, we have a constitutionally protected right for free expression and protest. But I would also tell those protesters, first of all, Canada has a very rigorous arms export regime that is administered by our Global Affairs Department. There has not been a single arms export permit issued since January by Canada for any Israeli arms. And Global Affairs has made it very clear that no additional export permits will be released as long as that conflict persists.
Minister, is there any concern with Donald Trump possibly becoming president again, that if we don't at least set a 2% goal, we could have a real problem if he's back in the White House?
Actually, to be really clear, we have already set ourselves a 2% goal. The Prime Minister has committed Canada to reaching that 2% target. The work we're doing right now, and it's incumbent upon my team, is to come back to government with a clearly articulated plan on how to reach that target, but to spend that money appropriately and well to produce the capabilities that our armed forces need.
So you said recently that the defense policy update is speeding things up in terms of recruiting. I was wondering if today you could share more numbers about the state of the recruiting, and when do you hope to start seeing more members coming in than dropping out?
There has been some positive uptick in, first of all, almost 70,000 people applied for the armed forces last year. I don't believe there's any significant shortage of Canadians who are willing to serve. What we need to work on is our onboarding processes, the security background checks, the medical background checks, how quickly we get them in, because we've got great people applying for the Canadian Armed Forces, but they'll often apply for 3 or 4 other jobs, and the first one to call is usually the job they're going to take. We have to be the first. And so we have to make sure that our processes are agile, quick, and responsive to what Canadians are looking for. We need more great Canadians and permanent residents to join the armed forces. We just got to work faster.
But do you have any numbers about the recent progress?
Well, I'm a little cautious on the progress. Right now, I've got some interim numbers for so far at the beginning of this year, and more people are in fact joining us. But I want to see a longer term because there's a number of reasons why people leave, and there's a number of why people join. I will acknowledge to you, we still have a great deal more work to do to speed up our onboarding processes. I think we should only be limited by how many people we can train, not how quickly we can get them in the door. So we just got to do better, and we're going to do better.
Last question. AEW aircraft an opportunity for Canada to look at a Canadian-built aircraft? Will the requirement drive you to a U.S. only?
No, I think one of the reasons we published that information with a fully funded budget in our latest policy update was to send a clear message to all industry, but in particular Canadian aerospace industry, about where we're going and that the money will be there. I really very much believe that, first of all, Canadian aerospace industry and innovators are remarkable, and I want them to be able to compete, for those contracts. We're going to work in a partnership with them. I think there's a real opportunity for us to work together to get the best result for our Air Force, but also the best result for Canadian industry and Canadian workers. Thank you all very much.